So tell us about where did you pick hops as a child?
At Hall Court for JJS Powell.
So I wonder if you can just say that again, but just tell us where Old Court is.
Picked hops at Hall Court, Rushall, for JJS Powell.
And what sort of jobs did you do there?
Well, I used to pick then, and then I used to go in the house to do jobs in the house, then go into the hop yard and pick hops at a crib then. Then after that, when they were short-staffed, I used to help carry the bags after they'd done the measuring.
Did you tell me that your mother was a booker?
My mother used to do the booking when the hops were bushelled. She was the bookie.
Now you were telling me about that you had 2 guests who came to pick hops here. Can you tell me about them?
2 Australians arrived looking for work at Hall Court, and they were taken on helping with the hops. And they used to stay in the youth hostel, and my mother used to cook their supper for them. And they were Buzz and Bert. And they stayed with us for quite a time.
You stayed in touch with them, didn't you?
Yes. The one we'd never got in touch for quite a long time, and then all of a sudden one New Year's Eve, Buzz rang us up to wish a Happy New Year, and after that he rang for 2 or 3 years, and we haven't heard nothing for 2 years now, so we presume he's dead.
There's a fantastic photograph of you back in your house with all the hop holes. Can you tell us about what you're doing in that photograph?
Tom Powell bought a patch of chestnut, and the men from Old Court went over there to fall them, and the women went over there to burn all the rubbish up, because they trimmed them out and burnt all the rubbish up. They were brought back to Old Court, and the women had to pull the skin off them so that they could go into the pickling tank to be pickled before they were put into the hop yard.
You were describing to me before how you did it. Can you just show me how you did it?
Well,
did you use?
We used a draw knife, and we used to draw the skins off and turn them. There was one woman one end and one the other end, and we used to skin the hop balls, and then they were put into the pickling tank and pickled.
Sounds like a horrible job.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a horrible, easy job.
So Mr. Powell bought he bought woodland to grow chestnuts?
No, the chestnuts were already growing and it was for sale, and he bought it so that he could have hop poles for the hop picking.
You were saying that hop picking, the income was really important.
Well, yes, when it was picked by hand, because that's when they went to earn the money to clothe the children out to go back to school.
And did the pickers come from West Midlands?
No, they were all brought in by bus from Newent, Dimmock, Rumsgreen, Muchmarco and Kempley.
What about the travellers?
Well, travellers, they didn't have over many travellers, but they were there. They used to come in for the hop picking, come in a few days before we started hop picking and stay for the hop picking, and then moved on somewhere else for the winter.
Who was Archie Smith?
Alfie Smith was one. He was a good hop picker. You couldn't beat him at hop picking. But he lived at Kempley at the time. But he moved in around locally, and then he used to come, and then he used to do work on the farm as well after that.
So when you say he was a good picker, was he very fast?
Very fast, yeah.
Clean?
Clean, yeah.
Thank you.
What were you did Alfie have a wedding?
Yeah, he was going with one of the traveller girls, and at the end of the hop picking they got married. They went off and got married, and then they came back here to celebrate in the evening. And that's when we got her mother drunk.
What happened? How did she get home?
John Parrington was here, and he took her home in his truck. Got someone else to help him they went to the hop kills, and then they went and got Doug Probert to help to get him across to the tent, to get her in the tent, because she was so drunk she couldn't stand.
What we're in the Rushall Club now. What was it like during hop picking season?
Oh, well, it was quite busy, you know, but we didn't get a lot of travellers coming. Travellers weren't using it, it was just our local people. But I mean, when the men did, on a Friday night, when the men did get paid, you'd get some call in here and they failed to get home because they were spending their money.
And looking at me.
When on a Friday night was the busiest night when they used to come in, when they'd got their money, they used to call in the Rushall Club, and then they used to spend their money before they went home.
You've got some links. This used to be a kiln. Can you tell us about your family links to this when it was working kiln?
Yeah, well, part of the club was a hop kiln. I can just remember my grandfather working here, being a hop dryer, and he worked here, and then they built, in 1937, I think it was, down at Hall Court, they built some new kilns. So then my uncle took over after my grandfather, and was a hop dryer. My father used to go back and help in the evenings to load the kilns and do the bagging. Yeah.
Tell me about the flagmen.
Well, they used to have what they called the flagmen, pole workers. Well, they used to go round to get the flags off the wire work, which was left hanging on there. And then when people wanted to move into what they called houses, they had a length in the hop yard, then they used to move the cribs for the people and keep the wire work all clean and pick all the odds and ends up off the rows.
Did you ever do any wire work or stringing?
No, I didn't do that job.
I often wonder, when people were hop picking by hand, where did people go to relieve themselves?
You went to the edge.
Sorry, I laughed then, Doreen. I shouldn't have laughed.
Shouldn't you?
No, sorry, because it's going to get in the way from Rick. Can you just tell us what people did?
Well, in those days there were no mobile toilets put in, so if ever you wanted to go, you had to go behind the edge.
Wasn't there a story about the flagging? It's quite a hard job, isn't it? Is that right?
That was the stringing was hard.
The stringing was our job, yeah.
Because of the...
You're looking up and down.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I didn't have nothing much to do with that, did I? So
I think John might be.
Yeah.
Who was Anna Brace?
Anna Brace was a fruit and vegetable and fish lady from Ledbury. Used to come round a couple of times a week with her fish cart, and everybody used to go to buy their fish, and they'd got their fires going, and they used to put their fish kippers on a stick, cook them over the fire, and everybody, you could smell the fish. Everybody was feeling hungry when they were cooking their fish.
Tell me about the hedgehog.
Oh, one day they were talking about hedgehogs, and Alfie Smith said, "I'll do you a hedgehog." He said, one day they were talking about hedgehogs, and Alfie said, "I'll do a hedgehog." So he cooked the hedgehog, and it was on a Saturday morning, and I used to go in the house to work, and they came and asked me if I'd put it in the oven to warm it up for them. So I put it in the Arger and got it warmed and took it to them in the hop kiln. I didn't stop to have any of it because I didn't fancy it.
That's great, isn't it?
Such a great little story. Because Alfie Smith, he was a traveller, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah.
Because you just mentioned him. Perhaps you can just tell us about him.
Well, Alfie Smith, he was a traveller, but he lived he originated from Newent, I think, the first place. Then he came round here, and he used to work on the farms round here, and then he came and lived in the council houses for a bit, and then he moved off to another council house, and he moved out of the district. So that was the end of Alfie.
Yes, so tell us about your father.
My father was Charlie Pocknell, and he started work at Hall Court when he was 14, and he was the wagoner there, and then he used to haul the hops from Allcourt to Ashburton Station. They went by rail then, and he used to walk the horses there and back.
When you were a young girl on the hop fields, you couldn't really mess around and play. You had to actually work.
Oh yes, you had to work.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you
tell
had.
us about that.
Yeah. Oh, you had to stay at the crib when you were still at school. You never run the hop yard playing. You always had to be at the crib picking up. So you had the bind put across your fingers.
That's really good.
You talking about muck spreading and then eating your lunch around the hop field.
Yeah. So then, yeah, they in the autumn you went along and cut the binds, burnt them all up. Then the men just roll the muck out with horses and carts and put it out in heaps down the roads, and then the women used to go along and spread it before they were ploughed. And then you didn't go and wash your hands in those days. You just wiped them in the wet grass or whatever you could find, and then you ate your food. No hygiene in those days.
What about the just you know, lighting? Everyone had their own fire in between. That's where you was having.
Oh yeah, when you did go in, they'd come in the yard in the morning, especially some that came early. They'd light a fire first thing in the morning and boil their kettle and have their cup of tea, and then they used to make the fire up then and have it for their lunch, and then perhaps in the afternoon they might make another cup of tea, because there was no canteens about then.
John was telling me a story about a very, very big lady who sat on the stool but didn't move him down and used to have a wee.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, that is.
Well, tell us.
Sorry, I think it's so funny. Can you tell us about that? Can you describe her?
There used to be quite a few old ladies come, and you wouldn't see them moving from the crib very often, but there's one special old lady used to sit there all day long, and as she was picking, so she piled up her waste. And then she never left the crib, but if she wanted a wee, she used to drop her trousers and wee at the crib. Oh no, she was a dry old steak, really was.
Oh, I love that one. We were talking about Mr. Hart. You were there when the first machine came.
Yeah, well, when ready?
Yeah, sorry.
When J.J.S. Powell died, it was left to his brother, but his brother said he was too old, so his son came in there, so he only had 1 year of hand picking, and then they brought in a hop picking machine and put in there, so after that all the fun was gone out of hop picking.
That's really interesting, actually. Is that what you mean? It's like an end of an era.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Because it's a major thing. A lot of people talk about that time, don't they?
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit more about that?
No.
What was last time?
Now, what am I going to talk about now?
Well, because you said it was just, it would change all the
Well, it did
furniture.
change because the atmosphere was all gone then, wasn't it? It was just like one big mechanical thing, you know, from the time it come from the hop yard. Till it came up there, and, you know, there wasn't the enjoyment in the hop picking then as it used to be.
But you also worked on the machine.
Yeah. I used to hang the machines on at the front of the machine. I used to hang them on to go into the pluckers. So we were on the outside, so we were out in all winds and weathers.
But that was very different to when you were hand picking?
Oh yes, quite different. Yes, it was just one mad rush then. It wasn't, you know, steady flow. It was rip tear all day from 7 o'clock till 7 o'clock.
Yeah. That would be nice if we could make it a little bit more obvious that it was in the days, it didn't come across in that it was in the days of the machine. Can we do that?
Yeah. Do you know, when you just described lovely how you were working from 7 to 7, it was fast,
How it was different.
but how it was different, but it was machine, because you were working on the
Machine.
not in the field.
Not in the fields.
Maybe, could you just describe it with that bit of detail in it, please, Doreen?
Where do I go?
Well, just describe maybe a typical day at the crib, and then the machine came,
Yeah.
and then you really quick, no talking.
Well, when the machine came in, you lost all the atmosphere of the hop yard. All the picking went. There was no jokes going on in the hop yard. You came in, put the machine in, and then it was just a steady flow all the time. It was from one extreme to the other, really, from a steady flow to fast work. And of course, we had to start at 7, and you worked through till 7 o'clock at night.
Fletcher, I'm sure John told me about her. She was a travel lady who was still breastfeeding.
Oh, yeah. We had one particular old lady with not picking. She'd got 3 boys, and she used to sit on the side of the row picking. Anyway, when it was time for feeding, the young one would go in to feed, then the next one would come up, push him off and suckle her, and then in come the other one, and she'd go, as. And then they used to live close to the farmhouse, and so they used to get on the road with tin cans and go up and imitate horses. They'd got these tin cans on their hands and they'd go on all 4s up the road, clunking like horses. And they were 3 boys, and I think they went out to Ashburton way to live when they lived from round here, so we lost touch with them when we had the machine put in.
I suppose it wouldn't be unusual for a woman to breastfeed 3 boys, but were they quite old?
Oh yeah, the one was getting on, really. They weren't little toddlers. They were the eldest one, he was quite a big lad. And he'd push them up.
It'd be good to that didn't come out.
So perhaps because might be good to say, I'm sure John said one was 14.
Oh yeah, he could have been, yes, yeah. Oh yeah.
Could you tell us that again then, and maybe give an age?
I forgot where I got.
Just about
We're terrible.
We had old Bet, who used to be in the hop yard, and she'd got 3 boys, and she used to sit on the fur of the hop row, doing her picking, and then it come feeding time. She used to feed the one, and then the other one, and then in come Johnny. He was about 14, pushed them off, and he'd have a suckle. When they started putting in, Mr. Hines came there to start putting the machine in, and then his daughter Cherry used to come there, and if anything wanted changing, she used to draw the plans on her hand, and that's how to take it back to their works to do. And then when they had what they called a waterfall put onto this hop picking machine, which Tom Powell invented. He used an old mangle to practice picking up leaves, sprays on, and then they worked it out, and they had this waterfall which they built onto the hop picking machine, and so that was put on all hop picking machines because they'd helped him out with that. He let them have it free of charge to put it on other hop picking machines.
Is it worth saying that if he could have made quite a bit of money out of it, couldn't he? Is that true?
Yeah, he just gave it away and it was...
Yeah.
So he could have made a lot of money.
He could have made a lot of money.
Could you maybe say that?
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
When Mr. Powell had it all put on there, he gave him the thing for doing it, and he could have made a lot of money if he'd have sold the thing to someone else. But anyway, that was his pay. When Tom Powell, he was getting a bit tight on the farmers, and I think he was getting into a bit of a rut. He was laying people off, and the hops weren't paying. So I finished, and then in 63, and I didn't ask for work at Weston's. Mr. Weston sent down for me to go up for an interview, and he gave me a job straight away. So I stopped at Weston's for about 40 odd years.
Because it's funded by Heritage Lottery, we have to demonstrate to them why doing a project like this is worthwhile. Can you tell us why you think making a film in this instance about heritage of hops is a good one?
Or recording
Or
stories.
recording
you know.
stories?
Or you might just go, it's a waste of time.
Well, I think this is a good idea that you're doing this, putting this all on film and keeping a record of it, because when we're gone, who's going to know anything about it?
Tell us about the photograph, Doreen, where it is, what you're doing and the period of time you're doing it in.
I've been taking the cider around for the ploughing matches for about 20 years. Westons provide the cider, and so we take it round to give it to all the competitors. But if you get a few visitors come up and wanting a drink, but you meet every ploughman then by doing this sort of job.
That's fantastic.
Did you want to say which ploughing society it was though?
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh
That-
yeah,
We need to get that one in.
Yeah,
you'll
got
get
a ploughing
in trouble
society.
if you
Have I got to
don't.
start again?
From the top.
Yeah, go on.
I forgot what I said.
And why are you doing it as well? Why are you doing
Well,
it?
because they let me go from Westons to do it.
Sorry, Doreen, can you hold it a bit more? It looks, that's nice, yes.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that looks much better, yeah. Okay, that's great.
So could we do it again and say which ploughing society it is?
Where do we start? Weston started giving the cider to the Trumpet Ploughing Society, and they asked me if I would go round and help to give it out to the competitors. But you always have got a few of the visitors coming begging cider, and I've done it for about 20 years now.